Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's AEW Dynamite review show here on the unofficial WWE podcast. Today is Thursday, February 3rd, 2022, and we are talking about last night's episode of Dynamite that had MJF versus CM Punk. A glorious, I'm stealing the phrase from you, Bobby Roode, a glorious main event, and a bunch of other weird stuff on it. So we're going to get into all of it right after this.
Boy, Sammy!
I've always been the baddest on the block.
I came to AEW to dominate.
Double Jeff Perry!
Nobody is gonna take this away from me. This is mine once again.
All right, everybody, as always, I hope you have all had a wonderful week this week. I myself feel like I'm probably cursed by Danhausen or something, because just another crappy week in a series of crappy months lately. You know, life gets lifey, and so therefore I say all that to lead me into this wonderful transition that is, I love being able to get in front of this microphone, sit down, talk to you guys about pro wrestling, sit in the sandbox for a little while, take me out of my moment. And, that main event last night on Dynamite did exactly that. So I'm super excited to talk to you guys about that. Most of the other show, maybe not so much. However, we're going to get into the whole thing as always. But first and foremost, Patreon. We're on it. It's $1 a month. If you subscribe on Patreon, you can either go to patreon.com/the WWE podcast, or you can go to the Patreon app and just search the WWE podcast, and we are on there. 99 cents, guys. 99 cents a month, all of these shows ad-free. It's a hell of a deal. What are you waiting for if you're not already subscribed? There's a Discord server where you can talk on during a lot of pay-per-views, and there's a bunch of exclusive shows, and most importantly, no ads. So make sure you get onto that if you have not already. And if you don't, if Patreon, for some reason, you're not into it, you're not a Patreon person, there's something going on, that Patreon is not for you, like just some weird, severe resentment to Patreon, or maybe you're just like me, you like Apple Music, go to Apple Music and look at the top of this page, which you probably already have already, considering you're listening to this, and you can subscribe for $2.99 a month, all these shows ad-free as well. All right, now that is out of the way, let's just get right into last night's episode of Dynamite, and we started off with Jon Moxley versus Wheeler Yuta. And yeah, guys, right from the jump, there's plenty to talk about here on this episode of Dynamite for sure. First and foremost, Brian Kendrick, obviously. If you follow me on Twitter, you know my feelings on this. If you don't follow me on the Twitter, it's at Mimi Burris, so feel free to jump on that. But really, I take it back, actually. I don't feel like I went too in on this. It's a sensitive subject, obviously, but all I'll say, I guess, on this podcast medium, I'm thinking about my words carefully here. On this podcast medium, all I will say about it is that I think Tony Khan made the right decision in this instance to pull Brian Kendrick from the match and hopefully any other future matches with AEW. Yes, I think that was the right decision. However, with that being said, I think hopefully you'd like to think this would set a precedent. And I'm not trying to make, these two things are not the same, and I'm not trying to make one worse or better than the other, but these two things are not the same. However, I think it's silly to pick out Brian Kendrick. I'm no Brian Kendrick stan or anything, guys. I don't know much about the guy anyways. I mean, obviously, I know of Brian Kendrick, and I remember a lot of Brian Kendrick matches, and Paul London and Brian Kendrick, but that's not the point here. My point being is that, again, I'm not making a comparison as one being worse than the other. That's not my place to do that. But I will say that that if you want to set a precedent where someone like Brian Kendrick, who has made these comments, can't compete on your wrestling show, then you probably don't want to hire people like Jay Lethal, or go without any investigation on other speaking out movement charges, and among wrestlers that are more heavily presented on Dynamite and Rampage, but specifically on Dynamite, or just AEW programming as a whole. I tweeted this out. I said it's very Jack Gallagher treatment that we are getting so up in arms about this, but no one's really talking about the whole Ronda Rousey stuff anymore, and nobody's really talking about the fact that AEW hired people like Jay Lethal and did little to no investigating. I think at least they didn't make any of it known, and I'm pretty sure no professional wrestling company did any kind of investigating on any of these speaking out movements. You know, I'm guilty of it too, guys. We can get caught up in the characters, but these people are people too, and sometimes, you know, it turns out people aren't always. I don't want to say people aren't always good people. I feel like I'm a parent giving a child a talk right now. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just saying sometimes people don't always do good things, and people do bad things, and they need to be, you know, there needs to be repercussions to bad actions. But I just think I don't think favoritism is the right word, but I just think it's funny that we jump on a guy like Brian Kendrick or Jack Gallagher from the Speaking Out movement thing, who was kind of the scapegoat, right? And, you know, we let this kind of thing slide with so many other people because of their position in a company or for whatever reason it is. So just food for thought, right? I'm not coming at anyone. I'm not trying to be accusatory. I'm not trying to stir the pot or cause any issues or anything like that. Just some food for thought. But let's just move straight into the match, because that's why, you know, that's what we're here to talk about, is Dynamite, actual Dynamite. And you know what? Wheeler Yuta stepping up against Jon Moxley in this opening match. And I thought this was incredible. I thought this was really, really fun to watch. I think it's been really cool to see Moxley in this new form. And it was a really cool story told, especially so last minute, of Wheeler Yuta. And they really hammered it home on commentary. But of Wheeler Yuta, you know, wrestling Moxley different this time, for a second time this time, and the first time just getting his, you know what, beaten. And this time being able to come out and having a different strategy and knowing a little bit more and getting a little bit better. I think that undertone of that story being told with this match, going on above it with the story of Jon Moxley, obviously learning about how to wrestle in this new shape he's in, and learning how to, in like multiple forms, I guess is what I mean by that. Whether he's lost weight, obviously being sober now, all this stuff. It's been interesting to see that storyline progress, and then the Wheeler Yuta one kind of underneath of he's getting better and better. It was interesting to watch that as well. However, as great as this match was, and you know, the only thing I will say is Wheeler Yuta definitely got a lot of offense. I think it made a little bit more sense with Ethan Page. I think we're pushing a little bit with the Wheeler Yuta stuff, but it wasn't anything that seemed too unrealistic. So I really enjoyed this though, and Jon Moxley obviously winning by pinfall with the paradigm shift. But let's talk about the post-match, guys, because Bryan Danielson comes into the ring. He's got a microphone in his back pocket. He asks the crowd, you know, who wants to see us fight? And he talks about he wanted to see them fight. And then he got to thinking about how Jon Moxley was the greatest AEW champion of all time. And then he starts, you know, talking, you know what, about a millennial cowboy, about Sammy Guevara, about Luchasaurus. And you know what? That is where I drew the line, though. That is where I drew the line about Luchasaurus coming out. Like, Luchasaurus. I never knew one of my dream matches with Bryan Danielson would be against a dinosaur. But that's where we're at today in 2020. So, but he says that them two, as a team, they should team up. They could shape the future of pro wrestling all together. They could take people like Daniel Garcia under their wing. Wheeler Yuta. Why is he hanging out with Orange Cassidy and Danhausen when he could be, you know, being taught by Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson, excuse me. And yeah, guys, I mean, he essentially, you know, Jon Moxley looks at the camera like, oh, look at this guy, right? And then by the end of it, he kind of looks like he's considering it. So this whole thing was so interesting to me because somehow, some way, Bryan Danielson came out, and really, I'm learning more and more, guys. Bryan Danielson is one of the greatest baby faces of all time, without a doubt. Obviously, we all know the run in 2014, and much more beyond that as well, but Bryan Danielson is an incredible babyface. I think he's an even better heel, though. I think as of yesterday's and last night's Dynamite, I decided that I enjoy watching Bryan Danielson as a heel 10 times more because he's so good at it, and he's not just your typical cheap heat kind of heel. Yes, he definitely does that here and there, but, you know, who doesn't? it's more this, like, I was confused by this, but not in a bad way. Like, yeah, Bryan Danielson's like, who wants to see us fight? And I'm like, I do. And then he takes it away from you. And he's like, but we should team up. And you're like, oh, I think I want to see that too. Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson as a team. And then he goes to, like, form his own, Hart Family Dungeon, but, like, Bryan Danielson, vegan dojo or, vegan gym, I don't know, of teaching all of these young professional wrestlers how to wrestle like Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley and take them under their wing, like Daniel Garcia. The minute he mentioned Daniel Garcia, I think me at home, you at home, and all of the crowd in Chicago were like, yeah, we want that. Please give us that. Bryan Danielson and Daniel Garcia, that would be incredible. Please, that, yes, please. But he's also such a prick the entire time that you want to boo him. So it's this weird dynamic of the crowd booing and cheering and booing and cheering. He talks about Lee Moriarty as well, obviously, too. I don't want to forget to mention his name. So this was a really confusing segment, but not in a bad way, in a good way, because Bryan Danielson is such a good heel that you can cheer this stuff that he's saying. Like, I can cheer for this idea of Daniel Garcia and Bryan Danielson teaming up, or Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson teaming up and starting the vegan, I don't know, the badass vegan gym or something. I don't know what they would. I don't know what they would do. This is why I'm at home in front of a microphone talking to you guys and not doing anything above this pay grade. But so he, like, teased us with some stuff that we'd really want to see. To me, I had this weird flashback to, like, the Cody Rhodes promo from a couple weeks back, right? Cody Rhodes comes out, brings the Ashley and I had talked about it on the show. He brings the ladder out into the middle of the ring, and Cody Rhodes somehow, like, cuts a promo on everybody, and everybody gets a sentence, and none of it hit, and it was all confusing and jumbled, and it didn't land as calculated or anything. It just was like, I don't know. You didn't even get a taste of a bunch of little things you wanted. You just got, like, this is a weird, okay, guys, you all know I love my weird analogies. Pick a candy you really like. Starburst, that's a good one. Let's go with Starburst. Who doesn't like Starburst? And everybody likes at least one kind of flavor of Starburst, right? All right, now take the 4 regular flavors, and then they got all those weird flavors now, like the tropical and all this other crap that nobody, I don't know. If you like it, you like it. Power to you. But now just, like, jumble all, like, take one of each and just jumble it in a giant ball, right? And then throw it at somebody. Or try to bite into that. Or try to eat that. It's going to taste disgusting because it's overloaded, overpacked with sugar and all this stuff. And you're really not even getting to taste any of the one flavors you might like here and there. You're just tasting all of this at once, and it's gross. Like, that's what that Cody Rhodes promo was to me. The reason I bring that up is this Bryan Danielson one where he mentioned, like, he somehow teased the match with Jon Moxley, teaming with Jon Moxley, somehow teaming with Daniel Garcia, maybe, or teaming with Lee Moriarty and teaming with Wheeler Yuta, or somehow the match with all 3 of those, or a match against Daniel Garcia. I'm really onto this Bryan Danielson, Daniel Garcia thing. Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson versus 2.0. Like, all of these little matches, all of these little starbursts, he gave you a little bite of each of them. Just not even the whole thing. He just gave you a little bite of each of them. And now you can't wait to get the rest of them. Like, it was just a tease. It wasn't like it felt like grabby or anything. It was more just like, I don't know what I want first. It's like when you walk into a really amazing buffet, like, where do you start with the bacon? You always start with the bacon first. But where do I start, kind of thing? And I really thought this was so well done, because still he left the ring and I thought, God, I hate that guy. But I really want to see him do all that stuff he just talked about. So I thought this was extremely effective. Confusing, but not in a bad way. Just, like, thought-provoking. And I really think Bryan Danielson should only forever wear white t-shirts. I think I will never look at anybody else who tries to wear a white t-shirt the same, because nobody else will look as good as that man does in those white t-shirts. And I know I skimmed over the match briefly, but I do want to quickly mention Wheeler Yuta. I can't say that name. I'm just going to say Yuta. Yuta looked really, really incredible, especially in comparison to the last couple times we've seen him on Dynamite. He's definitely improving with each match. And it's good to see them invest. Like, I imagine this is a big spot for Yuta to have, the first match on Dynamite. That is a coveted spot in AEW history. So It was cool to see Yuta getting better and better in each of those spots, getting better in headcanon, but also getting better, like, actually, like, in the ring. And Jon Moxley still somehow managed to look strong, even though he had all this offense against him against Yuta. And that spot on the outside with Moxley being distracted by Danhausen with the curse and him just like no-selling it and then getting the crossbody from Yuta to the outside. First of all, the crossbody looked awesome. Not as good as Jamie Hayter, so we miss Jamie Hayter. I don't know where Dr. Britt Baker and Rebel and Jamie Hayter were on this show, but, you know, that's nonetheless. All right, I got distracted there. I started thinking about the crossbody. I started thinking about how Jamie Hayter takes a crossbody, and then I just kind of zoned out into my own world. Let's move on to what was next on this show. And honestly, guys, it got a little weird from here. I'm not going to talk about every little thing on this show, I don't think, because I don't think a lot of it warrants any kind of analyzing, but let's talk about it, guys. Let's talk about this Brandy Rhodes and Dan Lambert segment, because, you know, if you haven't seen it, then good for you, actually, probably. I'm not going to go tell you to watch it, but I'm not going to go through a lot of this dialogue, at least specifically. Long story go away, they go back and forth with very, you know, Dan Lambert, very racist, sexist comments, and the crowd... You know what? Go watch it yourself if you haven't seen it. Go watch it yourself. But I do want to talk about this because I do think this warrants... I do think AEW needs to be called out on how awful and stupid this is. All right, so when we have Brandy Rhodes come out, right? Obviously, she's playing a heel. That is made very clear to us by her first line where she talks... She you know, essentially says, screw you to the town of Chicago, calling it Cleveland, right? That shows and entails, right, to us that this person in the ring is a heel. And then then Dan Lambert comes out, and somehow we're cheering for Dan Lambert. So we're cheering for the man. We're supposed to be cheering for the guy who's making racist, sexist, slut-shaming comments and talking about how, I don't know, Brandy Rhodes' breasts are fake, and that questions how, whatever. I'm not even as a privileged white woman. I am not even gonna go there. It's not even my job to be outraged on behalf of anybody else, right? But I was uncomfortable watching this segment. You know, the comment or whatever about the only face turn she's done or something is her old job. It's calling her like a slut or something again. I don't know. I don't remember the exact verbiage. And then so Brandy Rhodes then slaps Dan Lambert. The crowd is chanting, by the way, throughout this entire thing, shut the you-know-what up. And then she just eventually has to just talk over them because they don't shut up. Who am I supposed to be cheering for? The person that the crowd clearly hates and is I'm being told is a heel by what she did. She came out, or Dan Lambert, the sexist, racist ass. I'm confused here. I don't like. Okay, let's pretend. All right, let's break this up into two things. That's how we're gonna cover this. Let's break this up into two parts. All right. First and foremost, let's talk about the real world aspect of this. Right. I don't think racism and slut shaming and whatever else. You guys have heard me talk about this stuff with throughout the Jericho stuff more specifically. I don't think racism or racist comments and slut shaming or whatever should be used for heel heat in professional wrestling. I don't. I think I actually probably veer more on the line. By the way, Veer Mahan is coming, but I probably veer more on the side of. Like, I'm okay with real stuff being intertwined in wrestling storylines. I think, I know it was very subtle, but the Hangman Page drinking problem I thought was really a small continuous detail in that storyline with Kenny Omega and Hangman Page and the Young Bucks, obviously, that is a real life thing that a lot of people struggle with, obviously, with more recently Jon Moxley, who's spoken out about it. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with being edgy even sometimes with some of the stuff that they cut promos with and whatever else. Like, I really think, like, I'm not trying to watch, you know, a PG programming here, right? I am watching an adult program show, right, at 8 o'clock at night on a Wednesday. Like, I I'm well aware and I'm capable of taking in some of these topics and knowing that they're real things that go on in the world and the things that happen and stuff like that. The problem is these things are not being used in a storyline or anything like that. They're just being thrown out there for cheap heat, first of all. Dan Lambert, cheap heat. It's not going anywhere, right? And there's no like, they're not trying to hit some story beat at the end where, here's the thing. What's going to happen, and this is kind of brings me to the second part of this whole thing. What's going to become of this? What is the best comeuppance we get here? Brandy Rhodes, the heel, and Paige Van Zant, who's representing the guy who's making racist and sexist, and talking about remarks and talking about cancel culture and whatever. Paige Van Zant, right? Brandy Rhodes gets comeuppance. Who wins? Who's supposed to win this feud? The racist or the one who's getting booed? Or, it doesn't, the heel or the guy who's acting like a heel? It just doesn't make any sense. It's so distasteful. And I think if you're going to go there, if you're going to try to go there with this stuff, you have to do better. Especially with this kind of topic. You have to be as careful and calculated about stuff. If you're going to get edgy, you got to be as careful and calculated as the Hangman Page story arc was, as Kenny Omega was with that whole storyline, right? If you're going to bring up something or talk about sensitive issues, it can't be in this gross, disgusting, grabby way. Where are we going with this? And so that leads me into my next point, where you've got heel in the ring, Brandy Rhodes. You've got heel Dan Lambert somehow getting cheered. I don't know, for babyface turning the sexist, racist guy, who's calling himself out as that, by the way. Didn't even say that myself. Called himself out. Who's making fun of cancel culture, whatever else. You're babyfacing that guy. So Paige Van Zandt is the baby. Is it a mixed tag team match that we're going to get with Cody Rhodes and Brandy Rhodes versus Dan Lambert and Paige Van Zandt? Are we going to get Brandy Rhodes versus Paige Van Zandt? Who am I rooting for? It's not even like heel versus heel. It's just it's like heel versus bigot. It's almost worse. This was one of the worst segments I've seen in a while. And yeah, I'm a human being. I'm like, oh, he talked about her boobs. That's funny. You know what I mean? I've been watching pro wrestling enough to have I have the pro wrestling mind. I have the pro wrestling fan mind of old Attitude Era or later Attitude Era, early Ruthless Aggression stuff. I'm not stone cold, whatever. I get it. And I understand why people who maybe book pro wrestling go to this a lot of the time, because it used to happen all the time, but we are not in that point anymore. And I will say it again. I said it before and I will say it again, right? You can't be this outwardly sexist about stuff and make these kind of remarks when you're not booking a women's division, because you clearly don't view women on an equal level playing field as men. Especially in this sport. So you are already showing me that as a corporation, that's how you feel. And now you're just making it even louder by having some guy come out and continuously make sexist remarks and talking about her position in the company. I get it. It wasn't a bad jab, but it wasn't good either, because it was more evidence that this is how, I'm really starting to believe that this is how people backstage, this is how your QT Marshalls and Tony Khan, whatever, actually feel about women and about people of color or any race or anything. I'm starting to feel like this is, again, really bad timing with a stupid tweet Tony Khan made not too long ago. Not to mention, you're not letting a guy on your show who's made these terrible, terrible comments. And again, I'm not trying to compare the two, but I just felt like it was tone deaf. On the same night, all together. This was ridiculously stupid. And again, I am a woman, so I will say that, and I'm not, personally, guys, I'm going to tell you, I'm not, personally offended by this. I'm okay, right? I'm also a white woman, but I'm not, sitting here butthurt about what Dan Lambert said. It's not about what I'm thinking, though. It's about, look at your female audience. You clearly have no idea how to attract that, because this is what we're going with. It's not about whether or not me per se is offended, or it's not about whether or not you're offended. It's about who are we offending with this, and what's the purpose? Why are we making stupid remarks like this? Like, is it getting us anywhere, or is it getting us to a heel versus heel match that nobody really wants to see? What I will say, because I just rambled on. I don't know if any of you followed any of that. I'm finding out more and more how long-winded I am, and we'll have to figure out how to concise that down a little bit. But what I will say is that Paige Van Zandt looked awesome, and the pull-apart brawl wasn't bad. But again, who am I cheering for? I'm cheering for Paige Van Zandt, who's representing the bigot. I don't understand that. I don't. Also, why is Paige Van Zandt working for some guy or fighting for some guy who's making these remarks about, like, I don't know, women support women, right? Like, I don't get this. To me, the payoff for this is Brandy Rhodes and Paige Van Zandt beating the crap out of Dan Lambert. And clearly the Chicago crowd has been, I don't want to say they've been conditioned, because I'm not going to completely blame AEW for, like, the inner workings of bigotry and sexism and whatever in the world. But what I will say is that this little undertone of, like, it being okay to make these remarks about women, and it being okay to make these remarks about race, and it being okay to say all this stuff for no reason, by the way. Again, for no reason other than just, like, some cheap heat or whatever, right? And this terrible Jericho feud with the Inner Circle versus American Top Team. Like, you heard this crowd pop for a lot of this stuff. I don't know who they were they're cheering for Dan Lambert, so I don't know how we babyface Dan Lambert, but it's kind of like gross. I don't consider it, like, from what I heard that night, I wouldn't be proud to call myself an AEW fan if that's the present company I'm a part of. So, food for thought, especially if you were somebody at that show and you're cheering along with some guy, Dan Lambert, making these cheap heat comments for no reason. And I don't know Dan Lambert personally. I don't know if he actually has these views or not. I assume he probably does if he's able to come up with this stuff so much, but who knows? I just think it was a waste of going out there and saying these sensitive stuff for no reason, a waste of time, a waste of television time. And I don't even know where the hell this is going, and I don't really care. And I hope we don't have to see this again. They did it on Christmas too, and I don't think it got over then, so I don't know why who in the back was like, let's do that again. All right, next up we had Matt Hardy backstage with Private Party, The Blade, and The Bunny, and then Andrade, and it's copy, paste, repeat. You guys have heard what I've thought about this. I will say I still pop a little bit when Andrade talks about buying Darby Allin. I think that's funny. But I couldn't care less about this Rampage match. TNT title, open challenge. I don't get me wrong, if you guys have listened to the show before, if you haven't, by the way, welcome. But if you have, hopefully we won't have to talk about something political each week, because AEW will stop being stupid. But we don't usually try to do that on this show, and thank you for listening. But yes, if you've listened to this before, you know my views on Private Party. I think they're a great tag team. I hope they get away from Matt Hardy within the next year, and I hope they grow as a tag team, and I think they are definitely going to be awesome in this division. I just don't understand why Isaiah Cassidy is getting a singles match for the TNT title. It just makes the TNT title worth less. I'm all for open challenges, but the challengers probably should be a little bit more worthy than a random part of a tag team. You've got plenty of people on your roster. Use them. All right, speaking of plenty of people on your roster, we had Death Triangle, Pac and Penta versus the Kings of the Black Throne, Brody King and Malachi Black. And, yeah, we had blind Pac for a brief minute. And you know what? I might be in the minority, and I guess not, actually, because Chicago seemed to pop for it. I love the little blindfold thing. I actually wish he just wrestled, quote-unquote, blind the whole time. I think that's a great gimmick for Pac, and I think he could pull it off, but maybe not. I don't know. It worked for a minute for me, though. And this match was, other than that, yeah, it had its high spots, and it was good, but I guess for a good tag team match was not what I was expecting from these four guys. I was expecting more, and I'll say Malachi Black and Brody King looked really weak coming out of this match. I thought they got mostly dominated the entire time and then just barely came out with the victory. That's not how I think this should have gone. I think we should have seen Malachi Black and Brody King dominate a little bit more, and you get a couple hope spots, but really, I understand Pac and Penta are legit, but if you're going to push Brody King and Malachi Black to the moon, to quote Cameron Grimes, and I think they should 100% put the belts on them as soon as possible, you got to preserve their aura, and so they probably can't get beat up for most of the match and then just, blow a little mist in someone's face and then hit the Dante's Inferno. I don't know. I was really disappointed in this. As you guys can tell, I'm speeding through a little bit because we did talk about a bunch, and I want to get to that main event. Adam Cole cutting a promo backstage, just kind of no-sells the loss on the unsanctioned match Beach Break last week, and talks about how he's gonna fight Evil Uno. And I actually think it's pretty good booking. I was like, why Evil Uno? That makes no sense. I think although Rampage doesn't look very exciting because of the lineup of the match card, the only match that I'm actually really excited for is the Mercedes Martinez Thunder Rosa. I hope that gets to main event. But still, I think the Sammy Guevara TNT Open Challenge and this match, both being on that card, both matches are going to suffer from that. However, I do understand why they picked Evil Uno, and it makes sense to me, probably being that Adam Cole is going to be the next challenger for Hangman Page's World Heavyweight Championship, AEW World Heavyweight Championship. So, all right, we had the women's match up next, and then we get into our main event. And we had Nyla Rose versus Ruby Soho. See how I said that? We had our women's match, like our designated singular women's match of. I'm not even going to go into it, guys. Not today. I've done it enough. I'm done for the day. But this was an all right match for sure. I thought Nyla Rose definitely looked really awesome, and I hate to continue to pick on Ruby Soho, guys, but I think it seems like most of, besides the Chris Statlander match, which I really enjoyed, most of the matches she's been in have kind of been duds, and the common denominator is her. And I say that without having, too much knowledge, obviously, of everything behind the scenes. However, with that being said, Nyla Rose has really seemed to show up and show out, and only seems to be getting better every single time she's in the ring. So I really can only put this on. It just maybe it was a lack of chemistry there. I'm trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, but I feel like Ruby Soho has kind of outworn her welcome with the benefit of the doubt. I think she, came from WWE, wanted to show how talented she was in the ring, and I haven't seen it. I don't know if anybody else feels differently. She's definitely over for sure, and you know what? Power to her. And a lot of these women aren't there yet either, ring work wise. I think people just expect a little bit more from her, but we did end up getting the finish. It looked, I assume it was on purpose, that she misses the no future off the top, and then Nyla Rose hits a senton atomico, which looked incredible. That's what I'm saying. Nyla Rose isn't disappointing, guys. Again, every time she's out there, looks like she's just doing cooler and getting better, doing cooler spots, doing cooler stuff, looking more fluid, and getting better every single time she's out there. So yeah, Nyla Rose wins. Then she hits obviously the Beast Bomb. The Beast Bomb looked awesome as well. So after that we had the Gun Club. I almost forgot their name for a minute. They threw Jungle Boy in the snow. And then, you know what, I did pop for this, though, because Luchasaurus runs off the Gun Club, and there's just Luchasaurus out there, shirtless in the middle of Chicago, on the street of Chicago, in the snow, shirtless, with the dinosaur mask on. So I popped for that, so I enjoyed that part. But we've talked plenty about this whole tag team thing, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more on another point, but I'm not looking forward to that match, because it's the Gun Club. Hopefully they prove me wrong, but... All right, then we had Hangman Adam Page being interviewed in the ring. This was nothing new. This was the same stuff they've done. I have nothing new to say about this, guys. This feels mid-cardy. You've heard my views about Lance Archer. I think this is a really bad idea to go with this. I think this is like a terrible thing to do when you crown a new champion, and there's already concerns about the fact that he's going to feel a little bit mid-cardy in comparison to maybe Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega and even Chris Jericho. And then you book him in a feud where this feels like the least concerning thing on the show. I was more interested in Nyla Rose versus Ruby Soho than I was in this. So that tells you something. I'm not more interested in the Gun Club than this. So you know what? It's a 50-50. So there was a blackout on the timekeeper's table, because that always has that. Someone's got to go to the table once every Dynamite. So at least there weren't a bunch of backstage interruptions, so I will give them that. All right, then we get our main event of the evening, which was CM Punk versus MJF, and 45 plus minutes, guys, of greatness. This was such a good match, and let me preface it with, I am not going to touch on every single detail. I'm going to forget plenty. I have a terrible memory. There was definitely a bunch of stuff I loved in this match that we're not going to talk about. There was nothing I really didn't like, so that's good. At least I won't forget any of that because there wasn't anything to forget. But I really thought the pacing of this match was beautiful. Both matches, I guess, technically. I thought that they were able to work a style that you just don't see as much anymore. Like, they let things register. And CM Punk's selling of the arm and the leg, specifically the arm, the minute he went into the steel post, right, was some of the best selling I have seen ever in pro wrestling, ever, because we don't see it anymore. So the bar is not that high, but still. Match starting off with CM Punk basically just getting to, do a bunch of power slams to a guy who he's wanted to kick the crap out of for a while and beats him up. It felt like forever ago. He beat him up in the stairs with the fans. A callback to that whole thing when they ran up the stairs. Put him on the railing with his poor, area. And then there were, he lets a fan slap him in the stomach. He's just having fun beating the crap out of MJF. And that's when the shoulder to the post spot happens. He does the big man mistake. He pulls the Big Show. He pulls the Goldberg. He pulls the Bobby Lashley. Name your big man. Brock Lesnar into the post. And from then on, sells that arm like nothing else. MJF essentially for the rest of the match, both matches, attacks the arm and the leg, and obviously we had the spot which was such a brilliant spot with the choke out. I was like genuinely like I got mad. I was like really mad, not necessarily at the finish because I kind of saw it coming. Like no crap, they're gonna restart the match. Of course they are. I don't know. It seemed like everybody in the crowd bought it though, so power to them. But I was well aware that this is how it was gonna end. We had way too much time left. Yada yada yada. However, I was mad that, because CM Punk sold this so well, being choked out so well. I was like, get off that man, MJ. I was like, oh, fuck. I was really furious. I was like, don't choke out Phil Brooks here. We need him. We just got him back. And yeah, though I thought it was definitely a choice to do it that way, and I thought it was a good choice, and it allowed them to go for as long as they did, for sure. And have the match restarted. The referee, Bryce Remsburg, doing an incredible job. I didn't feel like he overdid it at all throughout, all of his little spots in this match and in the second part of it as well. And restarting the match, I thought he played a really important part where he wasn't overdoing it, but he wasn't underdoing it. And clearly, there was that great spot where he pushed MJF into the roll up from CM Punk because he just was annoyed with him or getting pushed around from MJF. So I want to give a quick shout out to Bryce Remsburg because I thought he did an incredible job, doing his job. So after they restart the match for the referee stoppage, obviously because CM Punk being choked out, and then Bryce Remsburg is able to catch why it happened. Dice talked about the roll up, and then we basically get a MJF beatdown for a little while. CM Punk counters the Heat Seeker, great springboard lariat, and MJF hits an arm breaker over the top rope. They end up on the outside. CM Punk hits a suicide dive. MJF and him both. During each time, I'm gonna go on this rant here. I'm gonna go on this rant here about stuff. Each time CM Punk hit a big move, specifically more so CM Punk hitting the big move than MJF. They took their time to sell it. That was a problem I had with the women's match actually, and I forgot to mention it. They did a bunch of bumps. Specifically that bump on the apron from Ruby Soho to Nyla Rose. I don't remember what the move was, but and Nyla Rose got right up. It's you gotta sell this stuff or it doesn't mean anything. And these guys within 45 minutes of television time reminded me how much this stuff actually is supposed to hurt and how much it actually is supposed to be sold. And I just with the STF from Punk, which was a great callback, of course. And I forgot to mention MJF's attire with the New York Yankee stripes, the pinstripes. Brilliant stuff. Just brilliant stuff. And CM Punk wore the trunks, guys, so I had a good night. They went back and forth with Tombstone. Neither of them were able to hit it. CM Punk falling over from the GTS at a point in this match was really wonderful. The near fall they got on the elbow drop. Everybody seems to have a gripe with CM Punk's elbow drop. I always liked it, but you know that's not going to end the match. We all know. I bought it. I don't know about you guys while you were watching it, but I definitely bit on that near fall. However, then the finish to this match, guys, I know I skipped a bunch of parts, but the finish to this match, Wardlow comes out, right? MJF does the thing where he rolls out of the ring after a big move. How could I forget? How could I forget? The Pepsi motherfucking plunge from the top rope since 17 years. Since Ring of Honor, you guys. Obviously not allowed to do that in WWE. And you know what? The best part about that spot was it didn't feel like screw you WWE. It just felt like a hey, I'm CM Punk and I'm back. 17 years ago. Pro wrestling, obviously, in Ring of Honor, and not being able to do that move and then being out of pro wrestling, it didn't feel like a shot at WWE. It felt like, or shot at Triple H. Maybe you guys took it that way. I didn't take it that way at all. I took it as just like I get to do whatever I want now because I'm in the company that allows me to be me, period. And it was just such a nice moment. And then the selling of the knee off of it was really incredible as well. So I forgot. That was right before the elbow, and I did not get to mention that. But yes, MJF does, again, for the 100th time, he does that little rollout after getting hit with a big move. And God, it's so good. Yes, there was biting, there was eye poking, there was choking out, there was, feet on the ropes. There were all the little dirty tricks in the game. But to me, that slow rollout, once the big move is hit by the babyface, right, and the heel just makes that slow rollout, is such an underutilized maneuver, especially probably because it slows down a match and everybody feels like it needs to be go for anything to be interesting. This match had my attention with every second throughout the entire time. They did not lose my attention, and they didn't have to jump up and do all these cool little high spots. I was not looking at my phone once. They had my attention because the story was so good. They probably could have been having a rock, paper, scissors fight, and I still would have been invested. That is good storytelling. But so MJF, again, is taking his time, slowly rolling out of the ring, and you just think, oh, God, I hate that guy. Roll the other way, MJF, you coward. And Wardlow comes down to the ring. The brilliance in this, you guys. Steps over MJF, in between MJF and CM Punk, right? Looks at CM Punk right in the face. We don't see anything else going on. We got a close-up of CM Punk and Wardlow. And then Wardlow takes a step to the left, moves as to if almost allows CM Punk to enter his own demise, but as we found out afterwards, but to finish off MJF. That's what it seems like at the moment, right? I'm not going to intervene. I'm not going to interfere. I was wondering where Wardlow was this entire time, too, funny enough. But so, CM Punk rolls MJF back in the ring. And then we get it. MJF punches CM Punk with the beautiful diamond ring. 1, 2, 3. Referee counts it. Obviously, Wardlow distracting the referee. And when we go back, commentary breaks down the ending of the match, and we get the replay. Wardlow passed the ring, the diamond ring, behind his back to MJF off the camera. Oh, it was so brilliant, you guys. The use of the Wardlow MJF storyline underneath, and not even underneath, it's just like right up at the surface throughout this feud has been so incredible. So incredible, and like makes it feel even bigger than it already felt like. Even bigger than your Batista Triple H stuff. Like, it makes it feel like beyond that, just the big man turning on his like snippy boss. Like, I don't know. Anyways, you guys know what I'm trying to. Your Diesel Shawn Michaels. Like, it's got a whole nother layer to it. The only thing I would have loved to see is the headlock takeover, but I'll be okay with that. And MJF sitting cross-legged in the ring, right next to CM Punk, obviously, and it's just a great touch. And I can't wait to see where they go from here. I assume we're getting a stepped-up rematch at Revolution. I don't know what that rematch is going to be. I don't know what kind of match it's going to be. I'm excited to hear. I really don't have any ideas. I'm along for the ride with this story. This to me, along with the Hangman Page, obviously, storyline with Kenny Omega, but that storyline, and yeah, I mean, these two are the most, I think, to me, are the most well told. Let me put it that way: subtly, beautifully well told storylines in pro wrestling that I've gotten a chance to witness live in a really long time, since as long as I can remember. So, with all that being said, though, guys, I really enjoyed the show for the most part. Yes, it had its problems, but with an incredible main event and a good opening match, and And a few things I liked in between, too. Mostly just Luchasaurus shirtless in the snow with a dinosaur mask. It's incredible. Long story go away, you remember the last thing you see the most, so I came away with the show with a good feeling, even though that shows you how good this match was, because this Dynamite had that, I almost forgot about that whole thing with Brandy Rhodes and Dan Lambert, because that's how good the main event was. So, with all that being said, though, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. I am hoping that Danhausen removes the curse from me, and I'm able to have a wonderful rest of my week as well. And I can't wait to sit down and talk about Dynamite with you guys next week. So thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you guys next time.